Alright, we are back, and we are staring at our hot springs, which currently don't look all that hot. It would be nice if there was some steam rising off the surface. So, what we're going to do is create a new particle system that simulates steam coming off the surface of our water. If we take a look here inside our particles folder that came in with our standard assets, you won't see a steam folder, and you won't find a steam prefab either. But what we do have is smoke. And we can edit the overall look of our smoke to make it look a lot like steam. So that's what we're going to do. So let's expand our smoke. And we have fluffy smoke, we have fluffy smoke large, we have detailed smoke. I'm just going to start with our general fluffy smoke. And we'll drag this right in here into the middle of the hot springs. And immediately we get some particles starting to rise up out of the surface. There's a couple of things. One, for the immediate problem is that this looks more like smoke than it does steam. Obviously that's an issue. Another issue is that it's a little hard for us to see what's going on because we have the wireframe of the actual particle sprites staring at us, all these blue lines and everything, and those do get in the way. So what I'm going to do is take our fluffy smoke and parent it to the water surface. It makes sense anyway. Wherever the water goes, we want the steam to go too. So let's take fluffy smoke and drag it up here onto daylight water. Now this will cause us to lose our prefab connection, but that shouldn't be a big deal for us, so we'll go ahead and click continue. Now, currently that doesn't help us at all, but if we select the daylight water, that gets highlighted, and now this really does look like smoke. All of those blue lines really got out of our way. I mean, except for the stuff there at the base of the water, and I'm okay with that. We could further, so we could push it down even further and completely get rid of all blue lines by doing the following. We could create a brand new game object. Now, we haven't really talked too much about what game objects are outside of the general sense of, maybe mentioning it a time or two. Basically, everything here inside of our hierarchy view is a game object of some sort. What I'm going to do is create a brand new empty game object. And it comes in, it's just called game object by default. I'm going to click on it and rename it hot spring water. Now into this, I'm going to put our daylight water, and we could actually take the fluffy smoke and just parent that straight up to hot spring water as well. So now if we grab hot spring water, then that wireframe, I mean, it's technically still there, but you can see it's a whole lot dimmer and a lot less likely to get in our way. So it allows us to take a look at parenting. It allows us to kind of quickly show off creating empty game objects as a way to help kind of organize your scene. And it gets some of the stuff that was making it hard to see what was going on kind of out of our way. So now we need to turn this smoke into steam. Lee, what should we do?
Well, first we need to get the inspector open for our smoke itself.
Okay.
But now we get the problem of having the blue lines back.
Yep, we're right back where we started.
So why don't we lock the inspector?
Okay.
And then go back and select the hot spring water object.
But wait a minute. You just said lock the inspector, and I just did it. I didn't tell everybody where to do that. And everybody's like, wait a minute, what'd he do? I wasn't looking here. I was doing something else in Unity, and they didn't see that. So locking the inspector is real easy. But it's easy to overlook, too. At the very top of the inspector, on the far right-hand corner of your screen, is this little tiny padlock icon. And if you click on it, it goes from open to shut, and you can play with it all day. I mean, I kind of find it entertaining, and I find myself clicking on it a lot. But what it does is it means that whatever you have here in the inspector will stay in the inspector once you lock it. So we have our particle system here. We click the lock button, and now come back over to hot spring water. And now we can see what's going on. All of those blue lines are out of our way. Now what are we going to do, Lee?
I'd say we start making some adjustments to it.
Sure. What are we going to adjust?
My first suggestion would be probably changing the material.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, where's the material?
That will be at the bottom of the inspector.
Okay, so we'll scroll down in the inspector. Oh, you're right. There's the material right there. Well, technically, we're down here in the particle renderer, we're going to be changing up the shader for stuff.
Right. Right now we're doing alpha blended, and if you look at our little thumbnail of our screen, there's actually some black in there and some white and gray.
Yeah, which, I mean, of course, it does a great job for smoke.
Right. So why don't we switch it up to, let's say, additive.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is click on the shader, and we'll go under particles. There are a series of shaders here specifically for particles. And we'll set this to additive. Now, that's some serious steam right there. I mean, if it was going to be that bright, you'd expect to be moving a whole lot faster. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
all right, well, now what?
Well, it's still not covering all the water.
Yeah, that's true.
So we probably want to spread it out, and that's probably going to help with the super bright problem that we have.
That's true, because what additive is doing is just taking the pixel values of all those colors, and as the particles stack on top of one another, it's just adding those all together and eventually pushing it out toward white. So we want this to cover the entire surface anyway, so I'm going to hold down Alt and kind of rotate us around just to kind of remind us what we've got here, which looks a little bit like a geyser. Now, in our inspector, if we go back up toward the top underneath the ellipsoid particle emitter, we'll see our ellipsoid once again just like we changed for our snow, and we can size this up. Now the cool thing is we can just do this right here inside the view and see how this changes everything. Now while we increase X, it's a good idea to rotate around so that the X-axis, which is the red axis by the way, if you're unfamiliar with the color coding system, X, Y, and Z is analogous to R, G, and B. That means X is always going to be red, Y is always going to be green, and Z is always going to be blue. And by rotating the camera so that the X-axis points left and right on the screen, it becomes a lot easier to see how when we increase this value, the wall of steam gets wider. So,
and as it spreads out, you can already see the glowing smoke is starting to tone back down.
We're losing a lot of that problem. And I think that's a pretty good position. It's stopping pretty much right at the shoreline. And I mean, if it's not perfect, that's okay too. Now we rotate around the other way so that Z is now pointing left and right. And now let's just take Z and we'll increase that as well. And we'll put it to around the same value for starters. And now we have all kinds of steam rising off the surface of our water.
Yeah, but it's kind of uniform and boring.
It is kind of uniform and boring, Lee, so how do you propose that we fix that?
Well, I'd say we go into the local velocity and take the Y and dial it down to about half of that.
Okay, half of that would be like, what, 0.75?
Yes.
I can do some math. I mean, every now and then. All right, now our steam just moves slower.
Right. But we want to
It's still uniform, though, Lee. I mean, you said the problem was uniformity.
Of course. So let's go to random velocity.
Okay.
And in Y, let's go ahead and bump that up to about 1.5.
Okay. Now, what's that going to do, Lee?
Well, what it's going to do is it's actually going to randomly adjust the velocity of our particles anywhere from 0 to 1.5. Actually, it's negative 1.5 to 1.5. So if we were to scroll below it, you'll probably
I can do that.
You'll probably notice that we've got some particles that are actually moving down.
So, okay, we have the occasional puff, which is going downward, but that's okay.
But because we actually have a Y velocity of 0.75, it's mitigating some of that. So if we actually let's take the local velocity and bump that up to, say, about 1.25.
Okay.
So we're going to get some particles that are actually still going to move down, but for the majority of them, they're going to be moving upwards.
Right. And that does kind of break things up a lot. Now, we could probably use a few more particles. What do you think?
Yeah, I also think it might be rising a little bit too fast.
Yeah, I actually kind of liked it at 0.75. Even if that means that some of the particles go down into the ground, it's not that many.
Right.
I mean, I can tolerate that as long as we're getting a nice overall effect up here where the player is. So let's change our overall emission. Right now we're doing 25 by 25. Let's set that maybe to, I don't know, let's play with 35 by 45. We'll throw a little bit of random emission in there. And immediately we start to see our steam thickening up.
And we want to be careful as you add more steam, the additive effect is going to become a problem. And if you want a little bit thicker steam, but you don't want the problem to build up so much, you can go back into the color settings of our material.
Which is down here at the bottom of the inspector once again.
Right, and open up the color swatch.
The color, this guy? This is right here, right where it says tint color? Okay, yeah.
Right, but it's a color swatch.
So we click on the color swatch.
And we can dial down our alpha.
Now that would mean we come down here to the little A line down at the bottom of the color swatch and we can drag this all the way down to 0, which means our steam disappears. But if you're starting to see a lot of really white steam, which is pushing out this This is clipping is what this is. And you don't want to see that. So we pull this down until we get right where we want to go. And it's going to be a little bit of a balancing act. So if you didn't think you had enough steam here, and I'll just kind of throw this out, if 35 and 45 wasn't working for you, and let's say, for a random case example, we say 100 by 100. So this should be a lot of steam. Should be like a steam bath. There we go. And that's doing a whole lot of clipping. Then you could counter that by coming down here to your alpha and pulling that down.
And you can also bring the color from a middle gray to a darker gray as well. And that will also help with the clipping problem.
So it's just a question of how you want to handle that. Because it's additive, it'll never actually look black. Additive is only going to add color. So to darken things, you have to be able to take color away or to scale color, and we're not doing that. So, I mean, this is actually looking pretty good. I would say we could probably take the color of it and push it just the tiniest little bit toward blue so that the steam is absorbing a little bit of the color of the environment. You want to be really careful with it. I mean, you don't want to go like this. I mean, it looks cool. I mean, this looks cool too, but now it's like, mustard gas, and it's like a World War II game or something. So let's, just random shade of blue. It doesn't have to be perfect. We don't even have to worry about the color picker and grab a part of the skybox. We're just doing the slightest little bit of cool tinting just so that when you look at it, you don't immediately see like a warm color that contrasts too sharply with what's going on. We don't want it to jump out at you too much. But we're getting some nice breaking up of the overall steam forms in here. Let's. Is there anything else you want to do? I'm getting kind of happy with this.
Well, this one, how about we add a little bit to the X and Z on the random, just a touch.
Do that. Let's scroll up a little bit, and
so right now we're at about
0.01. That's almost none.
Yeah, let's go up to about 0.06 on each.
0.06 by 0.06, sir. It's nice when you get to drive. I just get to punch buttons.
The X needs to be 0.06.
I know. I get so excited. All right.
So that's going to move stuff around a little bit and put a little bit more motion into
a little bit of side-to-side motion as they go up. But really, I think we're just about where we want to be. I mean, it certainly looks like steam from up here. It looks kind of inviting, actually. So let's play test it. Now, the cool thing about it is, since we start from so far away and we can't just get right there, by the time we get around to where that is, the steam has already had a chance to rise. So it looks like it was just kind of always there.
And like we were saying before, with particles you can stack them, and we could actually make another one that hung closer to the ground and spread out instead of going straight up. So it looked like there was more wisps of steam just hugging along the surface of the water. And
that would probably look a lot more realistic than some of the stuff we got here, but this is all just kind of demonstration and getting your brain kind of rolling in the right direction. If you'd like to experiment further and take little projects like that on, of course they're very easy, and I highly encourage you to do it, just to take some of the things we're showing you and push them just a little bit further. But I think we've got this to a really good place, and I think we could probably call it here. Do you agree? All right, so that is going to wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.